sit in the front. We need some front people. Oh, stop.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to B'nai Israel. And welcome to Solidarity Shabbat. And this is a beautiful, beautiful gathering of people. I'm so pleased to see old friends and new friends. And here we are together to worship, to pray, to reflect, and to support each other. we're going to welcome Shabbat in our prayer books, page 636, Yedid Nefesh. You will find the prayer books under the chair in front of you, unless you're in the front row, but under the chair in front of you. And in the back, there are prayer books in the shelves if you don't have one on your seat. And I am so pleased to be joined tonight by my husband, Dan Goodman, who's going to lead services, and Margie Surmer, who is going to be playing the flute. So we're in for some very lovely music. Thank you, Margie. But I really encourage you all to sing, because there's nothing that brings a community together like singing. I don't even really, if you think you can't carry a tune, that's really not an excuse. So please join us, and please, if you don't know the words, just la la la, yidi di. It's all very spiritual. So. Yidid nefesh v'rachama, Yidid nefesh v'rachama, Mishachavtecha, Aritzonecha, Mishachavtecha. La 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 Ritzonecha Yarutz Avtecha Ki Mosaya Yishtacha la 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 Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. I'm Dan Goodman. We are going to have a very abbreviated Kabbalat Shabbat service, and then we're going to have opportunity to reflect and interact and create what I hope is some Shabbat peace. Please turn to page 120. Bobby and Babs, if you would be so kind, lead us in candle lighting. Page 120.
Please join with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please turn to page 142 and join with Linda. Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem l'shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Kadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzechem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Please rise and turn to page 146. 146 for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Page 150, Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amecha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, u'chimu mishpatim, otanu lemadeta. Al ken Adonai Bishofenu Tumenu Nasiat Bikukecha B'divrai Toratecha U'b'mitzvotecha Le'olam Ki hem chayenu be'oref yameinu u'bayir nekev yomam v'layla.
Page 152, the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Elohim. אותו לעולם הבא.
Please be seated, page 154. Got a note, starting note. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להורות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם emet. Page 162. Yismachu, the second prayer down. 162.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, בקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, בקוראי עונג שבת. מקדש שבי שבת, כולם יספרו ויתענגו בטובך שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, בקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, בקוראי עונג שבת. והשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת. חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, בקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת, בקוראי עונג שבת. זכר למעשה Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah. So I ask that we rise again, please, page 164. Linda leads us in tefillah.
Adonai tzifata tifta ufi aki tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
166.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu, Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Hanoah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Ve'koneh Hakol, Ve'zocher Chaserot Ve'imahot, U'mevii Gula Lifnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, V'ezrat Sarah.
168.
Tagibur le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atarav lehoshia, Mechater chayim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berakamim rabim, Somech noflim lerofei holim, Umatir asurim, Umekayeh emunato, Vishenei afar, Michamocha bal givurot, Umidol melach, Melech meli tu mechayeh, Umasmiya Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lihayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol.
170. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdishim b'chol yom yahalalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. Please follow along up to page 100 and I'm sorry, 180, silent prayer.
lefanecha, lefanecha. Adonai Tzuri, Tzuri v'goali, Adonai Tzuri v'goali. Amen.
On page 371, starting in the middle with the Hebrew, it's our prayer for healing. Names of those we think of are in our bulletin. If there are any other additional names, I'd ask you to let us know, please. Yes. Yes. Lisa. Yes. Yes. Charlie. Oh, I'm sorry.
Please join with me. This is really very powerful when we sing it as a community.
You to turn please to 598. We started the service with Yiddi Nefesh Av HaRachamam. Our Father, our parent of compassion. And as you know, in the funeral services, we have our prayer, El HaRachamim, God of compassion. So we're here tonight out of our sense of compassion, both for what's happened and for our hopes for peace going forward. Now take a few minutes to honor all of our dead. The recent deaths include Joyce Feinberg, Nancy Stammelman, wife of Joe, Donald Cohan, father of Rachel Albert, Alvin Krakow, brother of Harriet Blum, Patrick Troy, friend of Ivel Kovner, and Claire Bodiam. This week, our Yortzites are Gabrielle Berlinger, Dora Cohen, Benjamin Cohen, Cyril Farker, Jacques Henry Green, Minnie L. Green, Bernard Hall, William N. Cronick, Paul Megabau, Esther Meth, Louis Mintz, Isabel O. Muravnik, Adolf Rich, Charlene Saunders, Ralph Schoonmaker, Mildred Schwartz, Esther Steiglitz, Nettie Radner Trorig, Sidney Voloshin, and Isidore Zakin. If there are other names you wish to mention, please let me acknowledge you. Yes, Paul.
Harold Wendell. My cousin Barbara Alvan Schaefer.
Yes. Are there any other yortzites, Shiva or Shloshim? We have, I'm sorry. I had one other piece of paper here. I'm sorry. So last Shabbat was the deadliest attack of anti-Semitism in North American history. This Shabbat, in solidarity with Pittsburgh's Tree of Life Synagogue, let us say Kaddish for Bernice Simon, Sylvan Simon, Melvin Wax, Daniel Stein, Irving Younger, Rose Mallinger, Jerry Rabinowitz, Joyce Feinberg, Richard Gottfried, Cecil Rosenthal, and David Rosenthal. And finally, it's our tradition to name 6 among the 6 million who died in the Holocaust: Kasia Brodsky, Rosa Fayer, Fania Gendelman, Naum Gratz, Shmerel Gorenstein, and Yitzhak Gorenstein. We ask all to please rise. Kaddish is on 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Amen be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei b'kol beit Yisrael ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mivarach le'olam olamei almaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh v'yit hadar v'yit alei v'yit halal shemei l'kudisha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemayam v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen.
Please join us in the Oseh Shalom, which is the very end of this.
Put on your microphone.
Please join us in the Oseh Shalom prayer, which is at the very end of the Kaddish prayer. Oseh Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom, Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru Amen. Hu ya'aseh Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen. Shalom Aleinu. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru Amen. Ve'al kol Yisrael. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Margie. We're going to invite forward Hadar, Lubin, David Johnson. Do you need a stand for any reason?
I'll take if we can.
I'm going to lower them so you guys sit, unless you prefer to stand.
I'll start by standing and then we'll
Okay.
see if I can dislodge it.
Paul.
Always a teamwork.
Probably take it off.
So I have some very brief ground rules. If you speak, please stand up. And remember, they're not interested. They're not only they are not whatever I'm trying to say. Everyone's interested in what you want to say. So don't address your comments only to David and Hadar, even though they're very important. So make sure everyone can hear what you're saying by standing up, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah, Shabbat Shalom. I'm Hadar Lubin. We gather here today in solidarity. However, I think that even more importantly, we are gathering today in an act of healing. Because every time that any community is subjected to a hate crime, we all suffer, and it injures the metrics that really allow us to be a community. So standing up here together as a community is truly the antidote to hate crime. We're going to start with a portion of reflection. We will be interested in hearing from any of you would like to share with us, and we will continue with a discussion. So let me start with David.
Okay. So before we begin, let us kind of put ourselves in a state of reflection. I'd like to ask you, if you want to close your eyes. If you don't want to, you don't have to. And think about what has happened and what it means for you and what it means for the nation. I am a Jew. What does it mean to be a Jew? To be a Jew is to have been tested in Egypt. To be a Jew is to have been tested in Babylon. To be a Jew, it means to have been tested in Masada. To be a Jew means to have been tested in the diaspora. To be a Jew means to have been tested in the Inquisition. To be a Jew means to have been tested in the pogroms. To be a Jew means to have been tested on Kristallnacht. To be a Jew means to have been tested in Auschwitz. To be a Jew means to have been tested in the War of Independence. And to be a Jew means to have been tested in Pittsburgh. I am a Jew. What does it mean to be a Jew? Take a deep breath. And another. Hadar.
I would like to invite you to share with us your own personal reflection. If you are able, please stand up. I will bring the mic to you so we can all hear you, please.
I'm Irv Borenzweig and live in Heritage Village, and got this email the other day from one of our non-Jewish neighbors. And I saw Linda in the corridor before we came, and I told her that we had received this email, which I forwarded to the rabbi, who, as you know, was out of town. And he sent me back notes, thanks for sharing. And Linda suggested that I share this with you, asked me if I had a copy, and I said no, but Ina had it on her iPhone. So let me read it to you, if I can see it. We just want to offer condolences to you for the horrible massacre you and your fellow Jewish faith brothers just experienced. Not only are we appalled that a deranged individual could attack a house of worship, but deliberately sought out a certain peoples as they honored their religious practices in their synagogue. May human beings believe that anti-Semitism is not to be tolerated by anyone, and though this killer is obviously mentally unbalanced, he must be brought to justice immediately. John and I give part of that away, pray with you for complete recovery for those injured and mourn with the families of the dead. Just know that your friends are thinking of you at this painful time.
Others?
My name is Paul Medina. One of the ravings of this sick person who committed this evil deed was against HIAS, the Hebrew Immigration Society. What that triggered in me was, from my mother's Sephardic family, Rabbi Murciano, that was affiliated with the congregation that they were active in. He actually said to my father, you know, I did a doctoral thesis that said that many people who came from Spain to settle the New World may have been secret Jews, and I found evidence that many of them were. And the reason I say this is because, well, my father never called himself Jewish, but he was from that country that's much in the news these days, Honduras. So I find myself caught in this, like I never thought I'd ever be caught with, having grown up in the American Civil Rights Movement. Here I am saying, you know, those could be Jews that we're sending soldiers against for all we know.
Thank you very much.
I'm Lisa Siegel. It's wonderful to see everybody here today and that we're all able to gather together, because in reflecting on what has happened and seeing a lot more anti-Semitism in our country in the last couple of years, and having been taught since I was a very small Jew that we should never forget, it's kind of hard to look forward without trepidation and concern for my children, because there are many people that I've spoken to who feel, you know, at what point do we start to worry about where we live? Of course, we should always be worried and concerned about anti-Semitism, but at what point do we really have to worry? If that makes any sense.
And then let me just get there. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tony. I'm new here, and I'm Jewish. My father was, and I came back here because I have been a victim of hate crimes, and as horrible as tragic the situation is, I have to say the one thing we all must do is not lower ourselves to the level of that man. Love will win. We have to keep hope and keep fighting. We cannot let some evil person or a group of evil people win. Because the one thing I've learned being around people that victimize me is when you back them in the corner with love and you tell them we are strong, they are truly cowards. And we must pray and hope. Even in the darkest times, there's always hope. And together we are strong.
I'm Herb Garber. I live in Heritage Village. I've been a member of this synagogue for about 20 years, and looked at the names of the people who were slaughtered in Pittsburgh, and later on I received an email from an association I belong to, American Educational Research Association. And I was stunned to see that Joyce Feinberg, whose name is the first one on this list, was also a member of this association, which is dedicated to improving instruction and education. And also one of the main policies or goals is to create a fellowship among all people and do away with the kind of hatred that we find going on. So it's kind of ironic that she would be among those who suffered her loss of life in Pittsburgh.
My name is Barbara Phillips. A friend of our daughter's is a rabbi in Northampton, and he recently wrote a column this week called Ritual as a Form of Resistance. And I thought about that a lot because we're all here together, praying together, we're ritualizing, we've come together. During the Holocaust, the people in the concentration camps came together. Ritual became a way in which they resisted and which they held on. And so all of us coming together today gives me some hope. And I think about that ritual as a form of resistance. May it never happen again. Thank you.
My name is Yuri Schwartz. I'm a proud member of this congregation. And I came to this country with the help of Hayes when I was a young lad. So I truly empathize with what happened in Pittsburgh. And it's too easy to ascribe what happened there to a mentally deranged person. And I think we need to hold accountable the leaders of this country who foster this environment of anti-Semitism and race baiting and everything that's happening here and encouraging all this violence and horrible, uncivil behavior. So I encourage you all to go out November 6th and vote the right way.
Hi, I'm Mike Rosen. So when we moved here 9 years ago, soon thereafter, Eli, who's now a freshman in college, he was probably 10, maybe 11. He was in the locker room in his hockey team, and one of his teammates, also 10 or 11 years old, found a $5 bill on the floor, leaned down, picked it up, looked straight at Eli and said, "Hey, Eli, you're a Jew. Jews like money. Do you want this?" And that was followed by a season or two of name-calling. Bagel Boy, Amelia experienced it as well in the elementary schools and onward into the high schools. The casual Holocaust jokes told at the lunchroom table by his so-called friends. I experienced just this summer on the softball field. It was a super hot day, and an adult made one of the most horrid so-called jokes in reference to the Holocaust I'd ever heard, and I called him on it immediately. So for those who don't think that what happened in Pittsburgh could not happen here, you're mistaken. Because there is, even in our little bubble of Goodnesstown, which I love so dearly, there is anti-Semitism, there is bigotry, there is racism. I read this last night at the Board of Selectmen meeting. I won't read the entire thing and put you through all that. But there was a blog post by a gentleman named Grant Oliphant. He's the head of the Heinz Endowment and the former head of the Pittsburgh Foundation, one of the largest community foundations in the country. And that was his synagogue growing up. So I'll read you just a piece of it, and it's a blog post called "We Are the Cure." It said, "Sunday night's vigil, vibrant in its celebration of Judaism and Jewish life, broad in its embrace of the broader community, offered one of the most inspiring collections of speeches I've ever heard. The theme at the heart of every single one was that love triumphs over hate, and will again. But this we must remember, not by accident, not without intention, and not without action. There is context to this. We are becoming so inured to these moments that we risk forgetting the totality of what is happening around us. Violent right-wing extremism is on the rise in America. Just now, in the days before this attack, a white supremacist murdered 2 elderly black shoppers at a grocery store in Louisville. Another white supremacist mailed bombs to multiple current and former elected and government officials and wealthy donors critical of the president. The tale of terrorism in America today is the tale of armed white supremacists increasingly emboldened to commit acts of brutal violence. It's common now to hear the sentiment that we all should tone down our rhetoric, and there is no question the language of hate and divisiveness should have no part in our civic dialogue or in our hearts. But if that is true, and it is, then we must be willing to courageously call out and demand better of leaders who dog whistle acts of violence for the cheap thrill of a laugh line at a campaign rally, who peddle in racist and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, who draw moral equivalency between Nazis and the protesters who oppose them, and use empty thoughts and prayers as a cynical device to ward off sensible gun laws. There is a sickness in the human heart, and love is the cure. Coming together in community is the cure. Embracing each other in all our differences as one people, that most assuredly is the cure. But love comes with accountability. It demands more and better of us than indifference and silence. We see the world not as it is, the Talmud teaches, but as we are. The gunman who took so many lives on Saturday saw the world not really as it is, not even remotely, but through the hellish lens of his own twisted fantasies. We can only create the alternative by being the alternative, by being the tolerant, loving, inclusive, and yes, mutually accountable people we aspire to be and know we must become. Thanks.
My name is Sandy Gold, and there are times that I think we were very foolish when we named our children. We gave our children hyphenated last names. My name is Gold, my husband is Medina, because we really felt, based on our family, and again, this is Yiddish, our family's love of de Golden and Medina. And we thought, oh, isn't that clever? And of course, I feel sorry for my children now, because they have these hyphenated last names. My daughter is now 36. About 12 years ago, she moved to this little town in Massachusetts called Agawam. It's where the Big E is. It's just west of West Springfield. It's a one-horse town, and I doubt that there's a single Jew in it, but she moved for a variety of reasons. And she met a young man, and they became involved. And her name is Ada Gold Medina, which in and of itself is an unusual first name. And he was very, taken with it. And he's not a Jew. I guess he was raised as an unaffiliated Christian, celebrates Easter, Christmas, etc. And he was very interested in her name and in her and in Judaism. And as they spent a lot of time together and went on, he would make remarks that are just part of, in his mind, this culture, to Jew somebody down, a few other types of remarks along those lines. And she called him each and every time. And he really learned a lot, as did his family, his 3 siblings, his sister-in-law, their child, the sister who is now 10, in other words, his nephew, his parents who were in their 80s, really, I don't know that they understood where she was coming from, but they really developed a respect of Jews, of Judaism, of her. While she's not observant, she is very committed, and she has a tattoo with her name in Hebrew, and that in and of itself. This is Ada. You have to know Ada. Anyway, anytime somebody makes remarks along the lines of what Ed has made, he calls them on it. And I really feel that, a lot of anti-Semitism and Holocaust denying, and a lot of it is ignorance. We have a lot of small towns in this country where people do not know Jews. And, the whole country is not the East, the West, and Chicago. I mean, and I just really feel that a lot of it is ignorance. And I feel proud that my daughter, for all her other issues, has made a small dent in the possible remarks, not necessarily anti-Semitism, from his family. They didn't, know Jews. But, this dent in their remarks, and has taught Ed to also call people on it and talk about why it's anti-Semitic. So, sorry if I ran over.
I am the very proud grandmother of 5 little Jewish boys. And we are talking about action. And I wonder if anyone can kind of, what can we do? What can I do to ensure that the future is safe for these, my grandsons? You know, at particular organizations, people's experience, like perhaps you'll come and tell me what, in your experience, what has been, you know, what you believe in and what we should be supporting, because I really want to make this world very safe for them.
I just want to answer. Hi, I'm Beth Rosa. I just want to answer to you, Linda, that what's been a help to me since we've been living here, because Lisa and I grew up in a Jewish town. We were in a bubble of what we thought was the majority. And then we came up here and it was like, where is everybody? But when we got up here and we experienced anti-Semitism week 1 in the elementary school, in the middle school, in the high school, on the hockey team, every place, the ADL was the best organization that helped us. When I went to the principal of the high school and said to him, my son's being bullied for being Jewish, he said, we don't have an anti-Semitism problem in this school. And I then said, you're the problem. And the rabbi did help me bring the ADL into the building, and since then they've had programming. Has it changed everybody? No, but that program at the high school level, also the program, the Johnson's son, Adam, had come to the religious school and he did a peer, I don't remember what that program was called, but this peer training where he spoke to teens, and I think he really reached them to sort of feel proud about being Jewish. That program was great. So they have a bunch of different ones, but that's the organization I would support. You're welcome.
My Joel Sherman, longtime member. My thoughts aren't fully formed, but I just kind of rambling. I was a war baby. Can you hear me now? Okay. I mean, I was a war baby, and I grew up with the Holocaust all around us. It was still very much on everybody's mind. The murder of Jews, everybody knew it. What's in part so shocking about this episode is that it's so rare in this country. Let's recognize this. I grew up in Chicago, lots of Jews, and as a professional, I must say that I almost never ran into any anti-Semitism in my whole life. But I'm not sure my experience is typical, but it's not uncommon in this country. We need to fight anti-Semitism very much, but let's not forget that we are still very blessed to be living in a country with freedom of religion, and the vast majority of us don't face any of this.
My name is Mary Lou Howson. I think probably most of you don't know me. I am an ordained Christian minister, and I'm retired and part of the United Church of Christ in Southbury. And I need to, my husband needs to stand up. Come on. The reason he needs to stand up is that he taught at Rochambeau Middle School for 37 years. The odds are some of you have seen him before.
And live to tell the tale. When I started teaching, I was 6'3".
As you were talking, I was recollecting my grandmother, my mother's mother, taught, I think it was second grade for 37 years, something like that, in Philadelphia. And when we were children, we were allowed to go to school with her one day of the year. And we lived in the suburbs. And she taught inner city Philadelphia. Her classroom looked like the United Nations. I am not kidding. There was nobody, there was no group that was not represented in her classroom. And I think it's from her that I learned something. Many of her children didn't have breakfast in the morning because their parents were too poor to provide it. She spent her own money. She made a fortune as a school teacher in the 50s, of course, to have juice and a snack delivered to her classroom every day at 10 o'clock. Because she said if she waited till 12 o'clock, there were 2 hours, the kids couldn't learn anything because they were so hungry. I don't know how to describe it. I don't think she could discriminate from one child to another if she tried. I saw something, and that's the only place I think in my life I've ever seen it. And that's tragic. That's tragic. All of us, and around these days, Christians more than anybody, or those who call themselves Christians. I'm not exactly sure that man was a Christian. We need to find ways to be with each other, to listen to each other, to hear each other even when we disagree, and to let our children see it and learn it from us. I don't know where else we begin except where we are, whenever we can. And sometimes the really simple things are what make more difference than anything.
Hi there, I'm Susan. I'm new in Heritage Village relatively, well, it's 2 years now. And I'm political. I'm from New York. I was born, my family was not particularly religious. But I have to say that last Saturday, when I heard the news, how do I say, I was shocked but not surprised, or surprised but not shocked. And it was deeper than I thought. It just kept going down and down and down, like, it's been coming, it had to happen. We are neighbors of Newtown. I have a friend whose kid grew up in Parkland. It's of the same cloth, but different. It's even closer to the heart. It's about madmen. It's about hate. And unfortunately, it's about guns. So I hope all of you are voting with me on Tuesday for the changes that can begin to make a difference.
I was not going to say anything, but I'm going to. I'm Carrie Strauss. Some of you know me. I am a teacher. I was a teacher, and I feel a teacher. When Sandy Hook happened, I was so upset and called them immediately and did some work with them. When Parkland happened, my grandchildren grew up there in Parkland. They did not go to the schools there, but they went to private schools. But they grew up there. And as a teacher, I never, ever worried about anyone coming into my schools. I did teach in New York City, too, for 7 years, and then in Richfield. So as a teacher, every time this happens, I just pray that that gun law will disappear. Of course, there are other things too, but that I pray will disappear. I have so much more to say, but I'm not going to.
Good evening. My name's Robin Gerber. I get nervous in front of large groups, and particularly with the mic. So Bear with me. I believe our children best teach us well, and we need to take the time to just take the time. To take each day slow and not rush through our days. And love and love and love. And replace that old mother's worry with what my yoga teacher always reminds me is replace that worry with trust. If you can replace worry with trust, not trust in someone or something, just trust that everything's going to be okay. So now love no longer equals worry. That's what my mother does. She thinks she loves me through worry, and it drives me nuts. So I tell my mother every time she worries, Ma, if you could just replace your love for me, this worry, just replace it with trust. So, Linda, when you asked what can you do, or Lisa, what do I do every morning as I'm I replace that worry with trust. So now love equates trust.
Hello, my name is Tony Morgan, but it's actually Asher Itzhak Ben Avram. I went to Brown University from 55 to 59, which was part of the period where there was a quota of Jews at every Ivy League college. They could not admit more than 15% Jews. It ran through my high school that Tony Morgan got into Brown because he wasn't Jewish. While I was there, the dean of the college, Dean Durgan, was asked a question in a small group about whether the college accepted on merit. And his response was, if we accepted on academic merit, we'd have a whole class of little Jews from Brookline. That was the dean's response. And he thought nothing of saying that. I have felt for a long time that we needed not to be seen as victims. Now, you may not agree with what Israel did after Munich, but I think it was absolutely necessary that they went and killed all the men they could find who were part of that horror scene. And it was much worse than any of you ever heard. Those Olympians were tortured terribly before they were killed. So I would ask everyone to think about how not to be seen as a victim, because that was certainly part of the Holocaust, and Israel has its way of showing that they will not be victims, but I don't see it anywhere in Europe or the United States. And I don't have an answer to that, but I think that's part of the problem.
Oh, yes, you do.
Not for you, for others would like to hear you.
That last gentleman I wasn't going to say anything. I'm a child of 2 survivors. And all week this week, I've heard my father talking to me, telling me that Jews weren't organized, and that's why a lot of people died. They just sat back and they waited and they got pushed, and the next thing you knew, there was 6 million of them gone. We need, like in Israel, Americans need to get organized. Whether it's, if we can have our election hacked by the Russians, why can't we be hacking all these websites, all these hate? Let's get their lives a little confused. You know, hack their bank account. They won't have time to be worried about what we're doing. And that's basically it. But I really think that there's a lot of talk about love, and I love everybody. But I just don't think that that's an answer when you're dealing with animals.
Well, just as a follow-up to that, I was going to say something. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm Bert, a member of this congregation. I feel the same way, that I'm touched, you know, by our togetherness and healing, and I just wanted to point out something similar, that I believe it's the love that's necessary for the healing, but the love isn't going to solve the problem that we have faced for centuries and seems to be on the rise here and in the rest of the world. Someone mentioned earlier Sandy Hook and guns. I just wanted to emphasize that Sandy Hook, Parkland, Pittsburgh, and Las Vegas all had something in common, and that is the assault rifles that can kill so many people. So gun legislation, we always, every election or every time legislation is introduced, we're fighting the NRA. It seems hopeless, but we just have to keep at it until someday it's really going to happen here. That won't end anti-Semitism, but it will reduce our losses. One last thing in regard to ADL and education. We recently have passed, finally, it seems so incredible that here we are so many years after World War II, and now we finally have Holocaust education in our public schools here. We've been fighting for that for so many years. And of course, it has to be Holocaust and genocide, just to make it okay, you know? And the teaching of tolerance in our schools, I think, is another very important aspect for our kids, and preventing those hateful feelings in young minds from developing.
Yeah, one last one. That will be the last one, please.
Okay, hi, my name's Ava, and I'm a sophomore at Newtown High School. So I've been in the gun control fight since 12-14, and we haven't stopped. But the thing is, as U.S. citizens, our votes are our voices, and as a 15-year-old, I don't have much of a voice, so that's why I need all of you to go out and vote.
I'd like to thank everybody for your thoughts and reflections. I'm going to pass it to Dan to conclude our service, but it doesn't conclude our interaction, and I assume we have an oneg. And if you have further thoughts or you'd like to address anything, please let's continue in the oneg, during the oneg. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Hadar and David. We're gonna ask you all to stand again, and Linda's going to lead us in another Oseh Shalom. I don't think we can have enough of Oseh and Shalom. Yisrael. Lisa Siegel's going to read some announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Again, just seeing all of you here and us being together is an amazing step towards healing. Thank you so much, Dan and Linda, for leading our service tonight, and Hadar and David for leading our reflections and discussion. This has been a very meaningful evening. Do we have good news to share? Marcy. Woo! Woohoo! Mazel tov, mazel tov. Any other good news? Yes, Tony. Mazel tov on your new apartment. Yes, Bobby. Oh, happy birthday! How beautiful! Wonderful. Do we have any other birthdays or anniversaries? I have a bar mitzvah next week. Right. Sunday, November 4th at 9:30 will be religious school. Tuesday, thank you, Ava. November 6th is election day. Please vote for Ava and for all of our children. Your vote counts. Don't forget to exercise your right. I'm going to correct this. Actually, there is no religious school this November 6th. There was a change in the calendar, and so if anybody was planning on going, don't. Instead, go out and vote. There will be school instead next Sunday, the 11th. Wednesday, November 7th at 10:30 is the Sisterhood Book Group. As Close to Us as Breathing is the book that they are reading by Elizabeth Poliner. The group discussion will be led by Sandy Slater, who I thought I saw back there. Friday, November 9th at 7:30 p.m. are Erev Shabbat services. It's Kristallnacht and Veterans Day blessings. And Matthew Siegel will be the service leader. If you have a preschool child or a grandchild who's in preschool, please ask us about our Babies and Bagels and Mazel Tots programs. November 14th at 6 p.m., Mom's Night Out. Let's say it all together. November 14th, 6 to 9 p.m. is Mom's Night Out. Come and shop, grab a glass of wine. It's a really, really fun night, and it is an important fundraiser for our synagogue as well. If you shop at Laban's, please hold on to your receipts and bring them into our office. Laban's gives our congregation a percentage of all receipts collected. Tonight's Oneg is sponsored by our B'nai Israel family. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Please join Linda and I and me in the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen, amen.
And now it's the Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, Thank you so much for your participation. Thank you. Tastes like pineapple.